Hey guys, so I know this isn't the most topical of things in that, like, most of you guys have probably already done your recitals, but it's never too early to start thinking about next year's or get more ideas on how to create a recital program. So I thought that's what we would talk about today, if I could manage to get the words out of my mouth. So I've given advice about this to a few people, but it's not something that we really talk about a lot, and a lot of the times your teacher will really establish your program, but it's really nice to be able to create one on your own, like a dream program or something like that, that's actually like a playable program, or just give your teacher a proposal. That's what I'm about to do today. So there's a couple ways to go about formulating a program. My favorite way is to find a piece that you absolutely 100% want to play. So, for example, my last recital was the Franck Sonata. I had the Franck, then I'm a contemporary focused player, so I wanted to have at least one contemporary piece. Originally that was supposed to be a piece written by a U of T professor that was created by my teacher in Toronto. Couldn't find a piano player for that, so that's why the Vasques and the Takemitsu happened, but I wanted something really contemporary in there, so that was that piece, and then I felt like I needed to push my stylistic skills. Since I'm a very contemporary focused player, I have very mixed feelings about Baroque music and early classical. I am a little uncomfortable with it, quite honestly. So I wanted to do something that would make me push my boundaries, so that's where the C.P. Bach came from. The general idea is that with a recital you have mixed styles. So you have a contemporary piece, and a romantic piece, and a Baroque piece, and maybe some other showpiece from the late 19th century, early 20th century, like that. Then it starts getting flexible. But you want differences. You don't want to just play all one style. And even within that, you can do a themed recital and still have multiple styles. Like one of my classmates just did a recital with all French music, all from the French Conservatory. But he started with De Vienne, he played Messin, he played the Taffanel Quintet and one other piece, oh, and the Dutier. So they're all very distinct styles, although they're all French. The program that I'm going to propose is a little bit less different, but I want to do an all-contemporary recital, or all-20th century recital, with Cassandra's Dream Song, with the piece that I had to cancel this year, with a piece that I commissioned from a friend of mine who goes to school here as well, and then either the Mio Sonatine and Crumb's Voice of a Whale, or a longer piece from the earliest 20th century to kind of counteract all of the avant-garde that's going to be in the other half of the recital. So although it's all technically contemporary music, it's all different styles. There's an avant-garde piece, there's a... I don't even know what the piece from Toronto can be considered, but it's relatively tonal, and very approachable, unlike Fernie Howe. And then my friend is going to be writing a piece for a chamber ensemble, so that's going to be different. And then you have something from probably the early French 20th century, so that's out in the middle of nowhere. And then if I do the Crumb, then that's a little bit closer to the Fernie Howe, just because Crumb and Fernie Howe are related, but it's still a very distinct, very varied recital. And to go along with varied styles, varied forms of pieces is also really great. So, concerti, sonatas, solo pieces, transcriptions, chamber works, those are all things you have to choose from. And you don't want to just do all solo pieces, though that would be a really interesting recital. You could do it, but you'd have to be very tactical about it. But the general rule is 1 or 2 solo pieces, a sonata, and then like a showpiece, something like Carmen Fantasy or one of the opera fantasies, like something that's really, really technical. though that's not necessarily what you have to do. My recital last year, or this semester, didn't have a showpiece on it. But it's all about variety. It's all about picking things that contrast each other, but still complement each other, so that way you can have a really great show of your skill. Because a recital is a time to show off. There's no denying it, that, like, your recital is a chance to show the world how well you play. So yeah. But for people who are just starting to pick their recital program, I think the best way to go about it, as I said earlier, is to pick one piece that you absolutely want to perform. It doesn't matter what category it falls into, but that, gives you that one piece of the puzzle to work around. So you pick a piece that's, say you want to do the Ibert Concerto. That's a French concerto from the early 20th century. So then you might want a Baroque piece, maybe a sonata. So then maybe a Bach sonata or a CP Bach sonata. Then you have a lot of choices, but you have a better idea of what you want to do. And then that will put you at probably about 40 minutes of music already, because the Ibert is about 25 minutes, and depending on what Bach sonata you pick, it can be 15. So then you probably only have about 20 minutes to work with, unless you have a longer recital, in which case you have more, but most woodwind recitals, at least, are going to be about an hour. And then you could do 2 short pieces, maybe one romantic, and then one solo contemporary, or you could just do one romantic. It really depends on what you want and what kind of styles you want to incorporate, but having that one piece makes everything fall into place. Or my senior recital, I really, really wanted to play both Chandelinos and the Nielsen Concerto. So then that means I have to work around that. Those are both contemporary, and I am a contemporary player, so that's totally fine if you want to focus more in on something. And then my friend was writing a piece, so I wanted to premiere that. So then there are my 3 contemporary pieces. The piece I was premiering was solo, so there's my solo piece. I have a concerto and a show-off piece. So then I want probably a sonata, and then maybe a short piece to fill out some stuff, because, weirdly enough, Chandelinos isn't actually that long. It feels like it, but it's only 8 to 10 minutes. So then I put in the E minor Bach sonata and the Toffanel Andante Pastorale and Scherzino, which is a very cute little concert piece, and it worked. It was very technically difficult, and it took a lot of work, but it was a good program. It was a balanced program. It was a very difficult program, but that's not the same as an unbalanced program. So it's really easy to create them if you have that anchor. Or you can do what my friend did and want to do an all-French recital focusing on the French conservatory pieces. So then that's your limiting factor. Or for what I want to do with all 20th century, or 21st century too. That's your limiting factor. Finding a limiting factor is the easiest way to create a program. Because if you don't, then suddenly you're like, well, I have the entire repertoire to choose from. And I will leave you with a final note. Don't be afraid to program pieces you've already learned. I know most people want to learn new music, and that's great. But playing a piece on a recital that you've already performed once is really, really comfortable. It's a really great idea. That's what I did with the Takemitsu. It makes it, solidify. And I've said this before, but a lot of professionals won't play pieces for the first time on their major recital. They'll do trial ones in churches and things like that. So that way it's not a first run when they play the big recital. So the equivalent of that for music students or younger people who don't have the option to do a whole recital tour is to program 1 or 2 pieces that you've worked on before, that you've played for your jury, or you've played in a smaller recital before. That isn't necessary, and if you want to learn a whole new program, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I've done it too. But sometimes it's nice to have that one piece that you know, okay, I can play this no matter what, I'm really comfortable with this, this is going to be a really, really great performance. So, I hope this helps. To those of you who are finished with your semester, congratulations. To those of you who are still having finals, good luck. I hope you guys do awesome, and I will see you next week.